in the whole 6010.
Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. Today's show is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico and see all the ways that you could save. It is Thursday, November 17th.
Yes.
Wait, November 17th.
Does that mean anything to you, Mike?
That sounds familiar.
Does sound familiar.
A week till Thanksgiving? Is that it?
Yes, it is exactly confirmed.
That's what it
1
is.
week till
Okay, that's what
Thanksgiving.
it is.
I think it is also, if I can do the math correctly, 5 weeks and 2 days until Christmas. Is that also correct?
That's it. That's it. That's why it's on my mind. I knew I
Must
recognized that
be.
date.
If we
and I
work
couldn't figure out what it
backwards,
was.
I think it's like 3.5 months removed from 4th of July.
I was thinking maybe it was someone's
4.5 months?
birthday, but I don't know.
Oh my God, it's Daniel Dopp's 40th birthday, and he's wearing a Jared Davis number 40 uniform.
Hey,
Happy birthday,
how
bud.
fortuitous is this, huh?
Did you plan that?
I did not.
How? Really?
Yeah. I mean, originally I didn't plan it because I bought this jersey thinking that I would be a huge Jared Davis fan.
Yeah.
And
He's on the practice squad now, right?
he is on the practice squad now.
I
Yeah.
think he was up last week for your birthday.
For Malcolm
I think.
Rodriguez.
He did,
'cause
yeah,
he was
hurt, right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about Daniel, Mike?
My favorite thing is that he is just one of the greatest people.
Stop. Oh, wow.
Greatest
David
people.
Presley.
Seriously. One of
No,
my
he is.
favorite people in the world.
You
I
are
mean it
as-
seriously. Love you, man.
Love you too,
You're my
buddy.
favorite.
You know, what I was thinking about with Daniel is I always think about we've grown into a world, and social media plays a heavy influence on this.
Yeah.
In which it presents an image of what people want you to be, not what you want to be. And in a world in which conformism, is that a word? If it isn't, what I'm trying to say is people that conform is like a way of life. No one's more authentic to themselves than Daniel is to himself. Daniel is exactly who God meant for him to be, if you believe in God, or whoever his parents meant for him to be, as wonderful parents. Their 40th anniversary recently they
Yeah,
celebrated?
they did 41st.
41st,
anniversary.
yeah. I guess that would make sense, right?
Yeah.
So we are so blessed to have you every single day in our lives. We love you immensely, and you look great for 40.
Thank you. Thank you
You
so
do.
much.
Like,
I appreciate that.
35, I would have maybe believed it. 40, I have to check an ID later.
You know, my favorite part about being here, Aaron Dolan, who's great here, does a bunch of our sports betting stuff. We did tailgate last week, and I mentioned that I had a birthday next week, and she was like, "What are you going to be, like 26?" And I was like, "Aaron, you're my favorite person in the whole world." That was the most, like,
Right.
But I will say, in all honesty, one of the things I was thinking about this on the way in, especially because I'm 40, like, the perspective that I'm trying to think about and have, you know, I've lived so many years at this point, and I feel so blessed to be able to work with people that I love being able to work with, to be able to spend time with people that I love spending time with, to be able to do this with you guys. Like, it's one of those things, most birthdays, I feel like it's more about like me, because I want to be excited about it. This birthday was thinking about all the things that I feel like I have been lucky to be able to have in my life, because I've lived 40 awesome years. And I started my life over basically when I was 30. Like when I left the military, and I want to say this for like everybody, I left the military when I was 30 years old. Like I basically started life over. So the idea that, hey man, it's too late for me to be able to do that, or it's going to be tough for me to figure things out. Like it doesn't have to be that way. I'm literally living proof. I started over at 30 and I get to
Better than ever.
do shows with Field Yates and Mike Clay on ESPN and Adam Schefter. And I do Sports Center every Tuesday. Like this is one of those things where I don't want to say that I'm not special, but like I'm everybody. I'm you guys. And the way that I want everybody to know, for me on my birthday, what I would love to be able to say is just know that you can do this too. Like you can do whatever you want to do. You can be able to just have faith in yourself, have confidence in yourself, and know that the only person saying no is you. So, you know, you don't need to listen to anybody else. You decide what you want your path to be and follow whatever door is open to you, and just be happy. Find yourself and be happy with
Good
it.
message. That's why everybody loves Daniel right there.
Stop.
And
So here's the thing.
We love him so
you're
much
such-
that we brought you. Oh wait, we forgot the cake.
So
God
here's the thing.
Dang it!
On
Are
my
we the worst
birthday,
friends ever?
I wanted to bring in a present for my friend Mike Clay, actually.
Wait, what?
Because
I get a present on your birthday?
yeah,
Oh
well,
my God, what
here's
is
the
this?
thing, and I want to say this: the Eagles, unfortunately, lost last weekend as a Detroit Lions fan on a 2-0 winning streak. One of the things I thought maybe we could do is help be able to reinvigorate Eagles Nation. And so I wanted to give you this Darius Slay Lions jersey that is obviously filled with nothing but wins after we Lions fans are on a winning streak and you Eagles fans, obviously you've had a tough little run. So I know you're a big jersey guy.
Do the Lions have the longest winning streak besides the Vikings in the NFC right now?
Right now?
It's got to be close,
It's got to be close. I think so. That's going to make you look real good too, I think.
Look at this. We're twins.
That.
Are we going to talk about Darius Slay on wide receiver cornerback matchup later or no?
It might be. Well,
Okay,
Feels
good.
like my birthday now. Feels like my birthday. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to everybody, Field. I tried to find another jersey, but I didn't have another one to be able to.
It's okay. I mean, I'm not. First of all, I don't deserve a jersey.
That's not true at
It's
all.
true.
That's
Second
not
of
true.
all, everybody go at Daniel Dopp on Twitter. Wish him happy birthday.
Yeah.
Follow him if you don't already, which would be your mistake. Wish him happy birthday. And here's to 60 more.
I would love that.
With modern science,
We can get
there's
there.
your music playing.
He's Daniel Dopp.
By the way, if people are wondering, like, why aren't we singing Daniel happy birthday right now? There's some sort of rule, and I feel like I learned this during my NFL Live days, where, like, you have such limited musical rights on a podcast.
We could do 6 seconds.
It's
I
like,
think, right?
literally, it's like, ha. That's as far as we get
That's
to
it.
go, right?
Or there's a
It's-
fine.
It's like a $10,000 fine. So while we do love Daniel, Mike and I have mouths to feed, and we have fantasy football dues to pay. Okay, we're allowed to play. Okay, we got
like
our
an
8
alternate version,
seconds
I
right
That's
there.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
Anyway, we love you, buddy. Happy
you
birthday.
guys.
Thank you for the
Appreciate it.
present.
Yeah.
And on my birthday, I'll think of a present for you.
I appreciate that. Shout out to Mama Dopp and Papa Dopp for making me happen.
Lions confirmed second longest winning streak in the NFC.
Look
Right?
at that. See how
Red
much
hot.
mojo is stored up in that jersey? I think
I'm
the
feeling
Eagles
good.
might get back on track this week
Vikings at
because of
7
it.
straight, so they're way out in front. But
Wow.
man, if they
Feeling
had
good.
lost last week, you would have had the longest. Wow,
Dude,
And they pried victory away from the jaws of defeat.
that was close. That was close. All right. Let's start out. We got a bunch of news we're going to talk about. We got a Thursday Night Football preview. Adam
do.
Schefter's going to join us. We're going to do wide receiver cornerback. We got a bunch we're going to get through here, actually. I promise. But let's start. We got a weird thing going on.
Yeah, meteorologist, right?
In Buffalo, Field, we're getting reports of like feet of snow.
Yeah, we're gonna ask Schefter about this more in a little bit, but just it's our first reminder of many that there's a massive weather situation in Buffalo. Could have literally 3 to 6 feet at some point over the next few days, which could impact Sunday's availability. It got me thinking to a story because Schefter will have the nuts and bolts about what may or may not happen later. But back when I was working for the Chiefs in my scouting days, Kansas City Airport is basically one terminal with like very few gates. We had flown back from a 1 p.m. game on a short road trip. So we landed at probably like 7 or 8 o'clock local time. And during a massive weather delay, I think it was the Giants and maybe the Vikings were supposed to play on Sunday. But snow in Minnesota, or maybe it was snow somewhere, had like totally impacted the availability of the game. We get to the airport. And the Giants are just sitting there at the same gate that we fly into.
No way.
So we're sitting there, get off the plane. We're just like, oh, hey, New York Giants. Like, nice to see you guys. Where are you playing tomorrow? And they were like, we have no idea. So they were just sitting there waiting in limbo, just waiting at the Kansas City airport, trying to figure out where their plane was going to take them next.
That's amazing.
The Browns have not yet left Cleveland.
Okay.
But at some point they may have to. Schefter will fill us in with more in just a little bit. We talk about injuries now, though.
Yeah, let's talk about injuries because Brandon Cooks, does this one count as an injury, Field, or is this still one like, where does this fall in the line of things?
We get used to Brandon Cooks being a non-participant or a limited participant in a bunch of practices. I'll get used to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and get used to him not being great in fantasy because his last top 35 finish was week 4.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
And the targets were there. Remember early in the season, the targets were great, and we thought he'll bounce back. Everything has gone south. The targets aren't there. Obviously,
vibe right now.
bad vibe for sure with that team. So for now, he's if he's active, you can consider him for a flex. That's it.
Yep,
That's it.
agreed.
What about Nico Collins? Just really quickly, if he's out.
Also on the injury report, but he did have a brilliant touchdown catch this past week. I think, and Mike can probably come correct on this one, but like same issue there is that like volume will be okay, not necessarily great, and quarterback play has not been what we expected it to be this season.
Yeah.
So I think Cooks is going to play, and I don't think this offense is equipped to weekly
handle
put
two
out
wide
two
receivers.
wide receivers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree with that. If Cooks is out, Collins is more of a flex option. If Cooks plays, Collins, that was his best game of the year by far last week. That's not a guy you could trust right
Can't
now.
trust him.
No.
All right. What about Ezekiel Elliott? Obviously, Tony Pollard has looked fantastic, which is great and also super frustrating for fantasy managers because they know sooner or later it's going to come to an end when Zeke is back. Is that this week?
I think he is. I think he's back this week, and the Cowboys have sort of hinted as much at this. He was limited on practice on Wednesday, which is a positive step forward compared to where he was at this time last week. I think Zeke plays, and Mike, unfortunately, when only Pollard plays, he's like an obvious top 12
He's
play.
so good.
He's really good. When both of them play, they throw themselves back into not quite running back purgatory, but you play them more because you have to, not because you want to.
Right. Pollard, it has been between 8 and 14 touches in every game that Zeke has played this season. So he obviously has a ceiling. That's where they limit him when Zeke's on the field, and that's not going to change. And Elliott was probably playing his best football prior to this injury, right? He's averaging 16.5 touches per game, and he has 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. So honestly, I think with Elliott getting so little in the passing game and Pollard doing a lot of that work, I think they're pretty close, right? And they've kind of come together in rankings when both are active, but obviously it limits the ceiling for both. So I think they're fringe RB2 options if Zeke is out again. Pollard, to your point, by the way, 275 yards and 4 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. The last 2 games Zeke has been out would be an obvious RB1. So we'll just have to see how this plays out until Sunday.
Yep. All right. That's really it for our news. We're going to have a whole bunch more tomorrow with Stefania on our Friday show, but now we're going to dive into our Thursday night preview. Let's go. All right. We got Titans at the Packers, and lineup locks for the Tennessee Titans include Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Does anybody else even need to be talked about
Next
on the
topic.
Titans? All right.
Titans
The Titans. The Packers lineup locks include Aaron Jones and Allen Lazard, which leaves a couple of names off this list. Notably, Aaron Rodgers, who last week came alive and looked like the Aaron Rodgers of old. I currently this week do not have Aaron Rodgers ranked inside my top 12. I don't have him as a QB1 or a starter in a 12-team league. Where do you guys fall on Aaron Rodgers this week?
Rodgers is what he's been all season, which is just a pretty solid QB2. You know, if you're in a super flex league, he's fine as a QB2. He does have 2 or more passing touchdowns in 7 of his 10 games. But last week he was QB9. That was his best finish of the season. That was his first top 10 of the season.
How many passes did he complete last week, Mike?
I don't know.
14.
14.
14. So
14.
yes,
That's
it was
3 touchdowns.
great
So.
to see him. It was great to see Aaron Rodgers produce, but how often can you count on 14 completions turning into a top 10 weekly finish with 0 rushing upside?
Knowing that that was his
minimal.
first game over 17 fantasy points the entire season.
Yeah, he's just had that QB2 floor, doesn't have a ceiling. It is a good matchup, though.
I was just
Titans
gonna
5th
say.
most fantasy points, most yards, most completions allowed to quarterbacks. So there's some appeal. And maybe, just maybe, Allen Lazard's been great. Yeah. He's been fine. If Aaron Jones into the backfield, if Christian Watson does come around and keeps this up and sees 7, 8, 9 targets a game as a player, maybe there's something there. Maybe Rodgers can get into that QB1 mix, but I'm not locked in on that just yet. So especially in what's probably going to be another low volume game. Should be a close game, but probably low scoring. I'm not there yet with Rodgers as a QB1, but he's trending up at least.
And also, I think it's worth noting, we talked about this going into the Germany game last week, that maybe Tom Brady and the Bucs find something after that inspirational win over the Rams. Tom did not deliver a massive fantasy performance, but early in that game, they were humming. They were at 14-3 before they even blinked.
Yeah.
Things didn't finish as we hoped they would, but maybe Aaron Rodgers, coming off of the team's best win of the season, starts to feel like this team can turn it around and he can help. He talks about manifesting things. Maybe he can help manifest some better days going forward. I have him as QB 16. One injury to note on the Titans side of the ball, which could impact both the running game and the passing game, is defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, who's like Aaron Donald Jr., like not quite at Donald's level. Nobody is, but he can at least be mentioned in the same breath as him. He's questionable for this game. We'll see whether he plays or not, but a bunch of Titans injuries. If he's out, makes it only a more formidable matchup for not just Aaron Rodgers, but also Aaron Jones.
Yep.
We talked about Christian Watson. You mentioned what he did in the game last week. Obviously, Allen Lazard is a lineup lock without Romeo Dobbs. Romeo Dobbs, we should mention, going to be out for this game with an ankle injury.
A few more weeks.
So no Romeo Dobbs. Do you see Christian Watson as somebody that you can trust in the flex, or do you need another week to be able to see it before you're ready to trust it?
No, I'm buying in, and here's why. Played 85% of the snaps and had 8 targets, right? So it wasn't a fluke game where he only caught 4 passes, 3 were touchdowns. We're not going to keep that pace up, but if he's going to get 8 targets with Aaron Rodgers in this offense and play every down, he's a second-round talent. Yeah. We've seen the flashes all year. Like, he kept getting injured, but the flashes have been there all season long. So he looks like he might be a player in this league.
40% target share, by the way.
Yeah. And again, if we get 20%, which is around where Allen Lazard's been, maybe a tiny bit below that, he's going to be good to go. So I have him 38th already. I'm buying in. Just he checks all those boxes. Snaps,
I'm a little
targets.
higher than Mike. Yeah. I'm even a little higher than you. Yeah. I will be the first to admit that, like, I want to see it one more time before I feel pretty good about it. Worth noting that he's only 36 in a week in which we have 7 top wide receivers on bye. No Cooper Kupp, no Jamar Chase. So just sort of do the math where he might be in a normal week.
Yep.
That being said, if you are down, or if you are expected, or if you're projected to lose your matchup, or if you're playing a heavyweight in your league, this is the kind of player that you have to be willing to roll the dice. Like, if you need to win, You can't afford to have a bunch of guys that put up 12s in your lineup.
Yeah.
Now, you certainly can't have a bunch of 4s either, but Christian Watson's, like, he'd get you 20 tonight. Wouldn't stun me, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking for a roll of the dice, Christian Watson's one of the better roll of the dices, because once you get past like a certain level of wide receiver in our rankings, you're just like, oh, wow, like Olamide Zaccheaus, okay, like he might get me 7.5 fantasy points this weekend. Like Elijah Moore, like he might run a route this weekend. That would be cool, right? Like it just drops off precipitously.
Yeah, and also good matchup. That's the other box, right? Fourth most fantasy points allowed by Tennessee. They've had some secondary issues this season. So I'm with you. Also, sometimes it's Thursday night and you have a lineup decision. You're like, I'm going to watch this game. I'm going to sit down and watch this game. Let's put an exciting boom bust player in there, right?
Yeah, why not?
Watson. I mean, that's fun.
Yeah,
That's a fun one. And if he's going to play every down, which he is, he got healthy and immediately just was ahead of Sammy Watkins. Wasn't even close. Like he's just blowing the doors
They're
off.
playing
on the
different
depth
sports
chart.
right now. Him and
Yeah,
Sammy
exactly.
Watkins.
I think it's sometimes you see a player and they have a big game. Like I'll give you an example. Nick Westbrook. He's coming off a big game too. And you're like, okay, we kind of know what he is, right? That's going to happen once in a while when you play a lot of snaps. Not real. Yeah. Like Christian Watson could be real. This could be a star in the NFL. He's the second round rookie. I mean, there's a reason they traded 4 picks to move up early round 2 to get him. I mean,
He and Kadarius Toney are the two players that I have my eyes on for the rest of the season.
Good call.
That maybe, and I say maybe because there's a chance this is not the case, but maybe they're both top 20 wide receivers by the end of the year.
possible.
Not like they don't score in the top 20 for the entire season, but by week 13 in the playoffs, it's like, yeah, Kadarius Toney's my wide receiver 16 this week. Those are the two players just because of the pedigree and the obvious talent. And even if Aaron Rodgers is not playing like he was either of the past 2 years, he's still Aaron Rodgers.
And that's why you use bench spots on players like that, right? If you're looking to fill out your bench and you're looking at waivers and you say, there's a lot of guys that are maybe even projected high. Like, all right, yeah, Khalif Raymond, he's probably going to play a lot. It's a decent projection. But scroll a little deeper and say, you know what? If things go right for this guy, he could be a lineup block down the stretch. That's the exact kind of guy you want. And Watson has been one of those guys we've been stashing. Kadarius Toney, same kind of thing. So I'm with you.
By the way, great Thursday night game, especially because the Packers won this past week. Like, we're about to hit a nice stretch of Thursday night games after some less memorable outings in recent weeks.
And they need it. They're one game under 500?
Yeah, and by the way, in the NFC, that's good enough to keep in the playoff.
Yeah,
runs.
they got to win.
The NFC
this.
South stinks. The NFC West is okay, but not dominant. It's the NFC East that all of a sudden has become the NFC Beast.
Last player, we didn't talk about A.J. Dillon, in part because, unfortunately, we've reached the part of this season where there's not really a point in talking about A.J. Dillon. He's not really someone to be able to, I don't think, that you're looking to start this week, but I just wanted to throw it out there to you guys.
Yeah, so hasn't scored or cleared 10 fantasy points since week 1. That's a stat I've used, I think, like every week the last month and a half, right? It just has not changed at all. I will say this. I wanted to talk really briefly about the Titans defense. Only one running back has been over 15.5 fantasy points against them, Saquon Barkley, in week 1. But they have really weird splits. They don't allow like anything on the ground. Only one rushing touchdown, the second fewest rush yards. They've been beaten up big time in the passing game, but that's usually where Aaron Jones is utilized more, right? We thought Dillon might be more. It's been inconsistent. He hasn't really. So if anything, that moves maybe the needle up a little bit for Aaron Jones, but it certainly hurts A.J. Dillon. So no, he is not a good flex option.
Jones been remarkable recently.
Yeah, he's a lineup block.
Every time he touches the ball, as I said this a couple days ago, like I know it's hard to like make a guy a one-man show in the backfield. But every time he touches the ball, I think to myself, for a sputtering offense, he's the ingredient that can make them work going forward.
Yeah. Packers are 3-point favorites here in this game. Over-under is 41 points. Which side are you taking? Who you want in this game, Packers or Titans?
This is such a tough game to
It
pick
is. It
because
really
it's
is.
like two teams, their point differential might be the same. The over-under is 41, as you mentioned, Daniel. That's just two teams that grind things out.
Yep.
Give me the Titans.
I'm
Close.
taking, I think the Titans cover. I don't know how you pick.
Against them.
Yeah, like how do you pick against them? Honestly, at least with 3 points. But I do have the Packers winning this by 1. 19-18.
Wow.
19-18.
It's
So
not
under,
even a
too.
score.
It's a score tonight, so be ready.
7 field goals.
Kyle, can you look
that
up
a
for me
score?
when is the last time that a football game ended 19-18?
Is it a
and
score,
please text us?
scoregami?
Who you got, Daniel?
That might be. I'm going to definitely take the Titans. If I'm looking at which one of these teams I think is going to grind out a win, I just feel like the Titans. I mean, Derrick Henry. I mean, I'm out.
It's basically a toss-up.
Yeah. All right, let us move on to wide receiver cornerback matchup. The Shadow Report, read it by Mike Clay, one of the best things that Mike does here at ESPN. And Mike, let's start. Where are we starting this week?
We're going to start with the Bears.
So we're going to start with
Falcons.
the Bears taking on the Falcons, and the Bears hopefully this is a positive matchup because they are already pretty tough when you're looking at starting them.
Oh, it's a positive matchup. Casey Hayward's still on IR. AJ Terrell has missed several weeks now with an injury. We'll see if he's back in this one. If not, Darren Hall will slide in for him. Rashad Fenton maybe will bring them some life. They traded for him at the trade deadline. He played an every down role last week, so maybe that helps a little bit. But Isaiah Oliver in the slot, he struggled as well. So across the board, a good matchup. Falcons, most fantasy points allowed to receivers. The 5th most to the perimeter, the 7th most to the slot. Just across the board has struggled this season. Darnell Mooney, I have him 32nd. He's a wide receiver 3/flex. This offense is scoring touchdowns now. There's more appeal there, and he's had a respectable floor. The tricky one's Chase Claypool, right? Yeah. He ran 5 pass routes last week, which that was the second game with the team, and he took a step back in usage, which was not something we expected. So the only thing we could do with him is leave him on our bench for now and kind of just keep an eye on reports. Like, okay, they're going to make him a full-time player this year. He's going to play more. We just have to keep an eye on reports. But right now, I think you got to wait another week before you start him.
Yeah, I commented on him yesterday thinking like he could be, if all of a sudden he became a full-time player, he could be similar to what we just discussed with Christian Watson and also Kadarius Toney, where he's so talented and Justin Fields is playing at a level now. And by the way, way more passing utilization from the Bears offense, both in terms of percentage of plays and number of called passes so far. This is no longer the offense it was at the beginning of the year. If all those things work out in Claypool's favor, he could be a top 25-ish wide receiver by week 12 or 13. He said yesterday, he made a comment basically like, hey, I also like to run block too. So they have me running. So I thought my forecast yesterday, and Kyle, we can hear you, by the way. My forecast yesterday was that at some point Chase Claypool is going to start playing more. It just seems logical to think that. We just don't know when that is. But if it happens this weekend, which I'm not forecasting it to, but if it did, what a great spot it would be for Claypool.
Yeah, and they're scoring a lot. I mean, Cole Kmet has 5 touchdowns in his last, 3 games?
Yeah, he's addicted to the end zone.
Exactly. And some of that's not going to keep up, right? So those touchdowns will be spread to other players.
Let's keep it in existence. I had too much Cole Kmet, unfortunately, this year.
Yeah. Did you cut him or did you hold tight?
A lot of best ball.
Oh, best ball. All right. So he's picking it up for you. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I want to keep it continuing because if I made it this far, okay.
Hashtag regression alert.
It's my birthday, Mike. Come on.
No. You give me presents on your birthday, remember?
All right, fine. Well, let's talk about this crappy matchup. A.J. Brown goes up against Stephon Gilmore. What do we expect?
Heavy weight.
All right. So this one's actually interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because Jeff Saturday made his debut as the head coach last week, and Stephon Gilmore did not shadow Devontae Adams, which was a big change from what we expected. He was on him a little bit. They put him on Foster Moreau, and Moreau was on the perimeter as well. So maybe the matchups will be a little bit different now. But we have seen Gilmore shadow Brandon Cooks and Cortland Sutton and Terry McLaurin this season. So it is possible they put him full-time on A.J. Brown in this game. But it's not a lock, right? So we're not as scared as maybe we would have been with the previous coaching staff, but still the Colts' pass defense has been terrific. The fewest fantasy points allowed to receivers, the 6th fewest to the perimeter, which is where, of course, A.J. Brown and actually Devontae Smith as well primarily align. So maybe a little downgrade here for A.J. Brown, but you're starting him. You're maybe avoiding in DFS this week, but that's about it.
Yeah, and we're just going to continue to monitor. He's still banged up a little bit, right? Coming back from last week.
Yeah, he was limited in practice yesterday with that ankle injury, so we'll see whether or not he's available. No Dallas Goedert, as we know now, so maybe that shadow of a top tight end does not exist. Interestingly, Jeff Saturday has talked about how he spent most of his time in the offensive room, so I wonder why they decided to not shadow Devontae Adams.
I really don't know, especially with how they've utilized Gilmore prior to the season. If there's a clear number 1 dominant perimeter receiver, Gilmore was on him, and that was not the case. It was just here or there he was on him.
But they do have a great secondary, even if Gilmore doesn't shadow. They just have a great secondary.
How did that work out, in your opinion, with him not shadowing last week?
Adams was fine, right?
Adams was awesome. He was great. 100 plus yards and a touchdown. It was great.
Yeah.
But maybe the idea was we're going to play our guys. Devontae's going to get his, but let's make sure that nobody else gets theirs. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's different. Maybe it's different when you're playing a high-octane offense like Philly as opposed to one in Las Vegas, which is stuck in the mud right now.
Sure.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's talk about another one. We got Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins taking on the Steelers.
By the way, obviously, Jamar Chase no longer in Mike's projections, so don't expect him this week. I think
I put him there just in case when I wrote this, there was sort of a question, and then it became pretty apparent he's still on crutches. He's not going to play this week, so don't worry about him. Really, all we're worried about here is T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, and we're upgrading them here. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've struggled all season. 2nd most fantasy points allowed to receivers, the 3rd most to the perimeter, the 4th most to the slot. So very much like Atlanta, right? Just across the board, they cannot stop anyone. And these teams have played so far earlier this season, back in week 1.
What happened then?
T. Higgins actually left that game early, so we already had this kind of outlook of one really good perimeter receiver. It was Jamar Chase then. It'll be T. Higgins this week. And, of course, Tyler Boyd. Chase, 10 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown on 16 targets.
So that's good.
Tyler Boyd, 33 yards, but he had scored a touchdown on 7 targets. He's been good as of late since Chase has been out. We like him. I have him as a lineup block. I don't know how you bench Tyler Boyd in this offense. And, of course, T. Higgins is always a lineup block. So great matchup, great players, great offense. We're feeling good here.
Feels like Tyler Boyd this week, again, and Field said this like 40 times, and we're going to say it again, with 7 wide receivers already out this week, plus you have guys that are injured. Tyler Boyd, with this matchup and what he's done, and knowing that Chase is one of those wide receivers, feels like he has to be a lineup block for managers.
Such a funny
for me.
Such a funny player, too, because it's like you feel like Tyler Boyd only gets this boost when somebody is out, Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, and then you're like, Tyler Boyd rules. Like, he's so good. Like, he's just a really good player. They just have the embarrassment of riches. Not like an embarrassment, like the embarrassment of riches for wide receivers. I've got a league that is just like hanging on by a thread. Hollywood Brown plus Jamar Chase plus Mark Andrews in that league. My spirit's a little higher today because of the fact that it sounds like maybe by week 12 we could have all 3 of them back in the lineup. We'll ask Schefter about Hollywood Brown in just a couple of minutes.
Do you have any insurance for any of those players?
I do not, but I do know where to get it if I need some.
Tell us.
That was a stretch.
Because Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? I actually do have Ron no more. Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help, like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Football season brings back many traditions we know and love. The pick six, game-winning field goals, touchdown dances. Check out yesterday's YouTube stream if you want to see how to properly celebrate a score. And watching it all with friends in a cooler of Miller Lite. The action on the field is reliable year after year. Pair it with the most reliable light beer. Every Sunday, game time is Miller time. Kickoff time, halftime, it's all Miller time. Miller time means good friends, great beer, and football all Sunday long. What's not to like? Miller Lite checks all the boxes you could ask for, and that is why, since 1975, it has been a mainstay in the stadium, at the tailgate, and in your fridge. No matter how your team plays, it's the beer that's always a winner. It's the Beer Drinkers Light Beer. With only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12-ounce serving, your only concern is the next third down conversion, or maybe your next touchdown dance if your name isn't Jamal Williams.
Hey, now, I did pretty good with that.
Football season brings back the big hits, so reach for the biggest hit of them all, Miller Lite. You can find Miller Lite pretty much everywhere beer is sold, or go to MillerLite.com/FFF for delivery options near you. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Bam.
Nailed it.
By the way, I got Daniel several Miller Lights for his birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
So tasty.
I'm pretty ready for the show to be over. All right, we're going to talk about Squirrel Stock.
Just after Squirrel Stock.
Maybe during the CSS DFS podcast, we'll have one of
Maybe we'll talk about Little Caesars
Thursday.
Yeah.
We talk about Little Caesars because we need pizza to go with our beer.
You know, I think we probably will soon.
Okay, so
Pizza, beer,
Yeah.
winning combo.
All right. We're going to do Squirrel Stock here for week 11, and here we go. I'm going to kick it off. We're going to start with Trevor Lawrence for me. Now,
Starting him this week or no?
probably not starting him this week.
Okay.
Okay. Why? Because he's on a bye. He's got a bye this week. So, understanding that, I want to look at everything that he has done, though. 18-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 5 games, 16-plus in 4 of his last 5. He's giving you that consistent floor. Last 3 weeks, the things that has been really exciting is he's using his legs. Mike, we've talked about how he was going to take the next step here, right? And one of the things that a lot of, especially within fantasy this year, rushing quarterbacks is what makes a difference. Prior to the last 3 games, he only had 84 rushing yards on the season. Last 3 games, he has 94 rushing yards between the 3. So we like seeing him utilize his legs a little bit more. I still want to see him use his legs a little bit more. I want to see him get Travis Etienne involved more. However, I love his upcoming schedule after the bye. He gets Baltimore, he gets Detroit, and he gets Tennessee. 3 teams that I think can be absolutely taken advantage of. I love Trevor Lawrence. Stock is up for me over the next couple of weeks here for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm not sure what level player he is just yet. I was hoping for a big year or 2 leap. Yeah, he's a tough one to figure out. He's had his ups and downs. But also Jacksonville is a couple bounces of the ball away from a winning record, frankly. You know, they've had so many one-score games, and we've seen teams flip-flop and kind of just have that bad luck. So he's an interesting one for sure, and I still haven't put my finger on how good he is. But, yeah,
We'll see where that
Can't
goes.
argue with the schedule. Yeah.
All right. Next one I have is Jamal Williams. And I haven't, this is going to be tough for me, but he is Squirrel Stock down for me. He is. Upcoming schedule, he gets the New York Football Giants, and then he gets Buffalo on a short week on Thanksgiving. Here's the thing. He doesn't catch the ball at all.
No longer,
0 catches in consecutive games, no more than 1 catch in 5 of his past 6. The Lions are starting to use DeAndre Swift a little bit more. Whether I think it makes sense or not, whether I really understand it, the Lions are doing it. So from that perspective, the Lions using DeAndre Swift a little bit more, knowing Jamal Williams is not a pass catcher, knowing that he's not going to be on the field as much. I guess, again, 2 tough defenses, one on a short week against Buffalo. Yeah. I think in the short term, as much as I still love Jamal Williams, probably still using him as a flex play if I have him, but a Squirrel Stock down with the way that things are working out here.
Reminds me of the Cowboys, right? When one of them plays, you can feel confident. When both of them play, you kind of have this spot where you meet in the middle of their value. And the tricky part, you could actually probably just say Squirrel Stock down for Lions RB, because if you knew DeAndre Swift was going to play 35 snaps, you'd start him. But he played 18 last week after playing 9 the week before. He was off the injury report. He is fully practicing right now, despite having both shoulder and ankle injuries. It's just hard to know exactly how the offensive staff in Detroit's going to divvy up those snaps.
Well, at least it's only 2 backs, right?
At least it
could be Denver.
No, it's not. It's Justin Jackson, too, who played 16 snaps last week. They're using 3 guys. Super frustrating.
And they have a potential Hall of Famer in Craig Reynolds on IR,
I know,
too.
right? He'll be back at some point.
Yeah. Pride of Kutztown University.
Yeah. He sure is. At least someone good came out of there.
Something good came
Him and
out
Andre Reed.
Andre Reed, yeah, I was going to say.
Someone more recently. Okay. Someone in this decade.
All right.
Last 2 decades.
I got another Squirrel Stock up. This one's probably going to be quick. This one's a little bit more narrative based, but it's Trey McBride, guys.
Here for
All
it.
right.
Like it.
Listen, tight end is such a tough position. When Zach Ertz went out, and still now, after last week with him being hurt, he's tight end 3, Zach Ertz, in fantasy points. Kyler Murray throws to that position a ton. Now we'll see how that translates to Trey McBride. He is not the same player. Obviously, we do not expect all of the same target share. That's obviously going to be divvied up. But understanding the way that Zach Ertz was utilized in this offense, I think Trey McBride is still available in like 90% of fantasy leagues. Yep. He needs to at least be rostered with what he could be. This is, we talked about it earlier on in the show. I'd rather have someone like him, for my tight end at the end of my roster than if you're rostering a second guy. I just feel like there are so many worse options than him. He is someone that has upside.
Yeah, and I did that this week. I have Ertz and Goddard, and I was looking at waivers, and I saw guys like Foster Moreau and Tyler Conklin, and I was like, you know what? In some cases, I picked up 2, just to have one on my bench and just have some security. But I grabbed Trey McBride and a few to put on my bench just in case, because rookie tight ends have been more productive in fantasy recently than we've ever seen before. So it's possible this guy was viewed as the best all-around tight end in this class. He hasn't played much so far, but that has changed a little bit, and he ran most of the routes last week after Ertz went out. So it's possible that, he eats into, 7.5 targets per game that Zach Ertz was averaging. He could be in that range, maybe 6 per game. It might be enough to be in tight end 1.
Only factor I'm monitoring here is at some point, and again, we'll ask Schefter about this in a moment, we'll have DeAndre Hopkins and Rondell Moore and Hollywood Brown all on the field, which you would think takes up some of the Zach Ertz work as well.
Yep, that's fair. All right, last one that we have here, and probably not for this week based on how weather turns out, but it's going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Maybe.
It's so tough to be able to figure out why it's taken so long. I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking News or Noise, because Al has mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones on the CSS DFS podcast, I feel like for a couple of weeks now, but the dude has been unreal. Yeah. He has 11-plus fantasy points in 4 straight. He has 11-plus in 6 of his 9 games. By the way, if you thought that there was going to be a wide receiver on this run-first team led by Nick Chubb that was going to have double-digit fantasy points in 6 of 9 games with Jacoby Brissett under center, you would have thought it was Amari Cooper. But somehow DPJ is still able to get it done. He is still out there and available in a ton of leagues, and he's very likely to get a better quarterback under center here in a couple of weeks when Deshaun Watson returns. And so with that, there is a lot that is pointing north.
Should be adding him now.
You should absolutely be adding him now. Going to see what happens this weekend as far as the snow game, because I am worried with him being the deep threat, how that's going to translate. But love DPJ going forward.
Past 6 games, Amari Cooper has 42 targets. DPJ has 40 targets. So it's a borderline timeshare.
Yeah, just bad touchdown luck. His last touchdown was over a year ago, week 9 of last season. We got to get some regression to the mean in the touchdown department, and then there'll be a lot more hype here. So get ahead of that.
I got the feeling on Deontay Johnson this weekend.
Deontay Johnson?
Yeah, who's ahead of, who's the only player with more targets than DPJ.
So we're working on him first.
May not yet be his time, but
This is the way,
Okay.
Mike.
Tarot cards have been
Yeah.
telling me.
We're gonna
All
get.
right.
We're gonna
Deontay
get.
Johnson
knows.
touchdown. Yeah.
All right. I think that's it. That's Squirrel Stock up for week 11. Fingers crossed
birthday
that things work
edition.
out. That's right. What do we want to do next, Field Yates?
Miller Lite, and then we'll talk to Adam Schefter in just a moment.
Perfect.
We
Mike,
did Miller Lite.
Football season. No, we
You
just.
want it, Mike?
I
it's
did.
me.
I did Miller Lite.
Daniel,
we
I'm
did Miller
sorry.
Lite. We're doing Little Caesars.
Make
Caesars.
Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the
There it
NFL,
is.
part
Thank
of your game day. Order online during their Pizza pregame 1 hour before NFL games and get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick toppings. Pick the toppings that you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of pizza, everyone scores with convenient delivery or their in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the tastiest hour before kickoff. Pizza.
And now we have, I think, the man who is the most connected person in all of football. And we say buenos dias to our friend Adam Schefter. As Schefter, you are headed for Mexico City in just a couple of days, where the weather should be no issue. At least I don't believe it should be very warm. But we've got a situation brewing here in Buffalo. What is the latest on what the league is looking into for this Browns and Bills game and when or where it could be played?
The thunder snowstorm that's rolling into Buffalo Field, that's forecasted to bring, 3 to 6 feet by Sunday. And so the league right now is monitoring the situation. It's been in touch with the Buffalo Bills and Cleveland Browns. I heard you talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I roster on one of my fantasy teams, who I'm very worried about playing this week in those conditions because we're looking at the first snow game in Buffalo, big storm, since 2017 when they played the Colts. And back then, you know who the Colts quarterback was, Field?
Jacoby Brissett, right?
Jacoby Brissett, who will be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. Now, the league will see if it has to move the game. It hasn't moved the game since 2014 due to snow in Buffalo. That was the year in which the league moved the Bills and the Jets to Detroit on a Monday night in 2014. So, again, how about this for a scenario? The Buffalo Bills play on Thanksgiving Day in the first game in Detroit. So, if that storm rolls in this weekend the way that people say, and if there's the amount of snow that people are forecasting, and if they can't play that game, and the way the league would decide it would be if basically the football game would be diverting resources that would detract from the safety of the residents in that city, then the league would then go ahead and consider moving the game, which we'll see whether the league does that. If the league feels like the people in the city are safe and that they can devote the resources that that stadium needs that day to have that game played, they'll play it in Buffalo. If not, they're going to have to look at other options. I would think with the Lions playing in New York against the Giants, you take that game, you move it to Detroit, you keep the Bills in Detroit, you have them play on Thanksgiving. But nobody asked me for my opinion there, Phil.
Yeah. It seems like we should at least maybe not expect it. We should plan for that possibility. It does seem logical when you're factoring. I know that obviously Bills fans love their team, and taking away a home game from them is terrible. Certainly,
want to do it, yeah.
That economy probably needs it as much as really any small market team, right? Green Bay and Buffalo thrive because of their beloved franchises, but you have to look out for the greater good as well.
No, listen, we would all love to watch a snow game. Those are glorious to watch, and Bills Mafia wants the game played in Buffalo. We all do. Of
course.
But the question is whether it's safe to be able to do that. That's what the league is monitoring. That's what the league is talking to both teams about. They'll get a variety of opinions, and they'll make a decision, I would imagine, at some point this weekend about whether they can or can't play that game in Buffalo.
I don't know if it was the same storm or not, but I checked out the Western Michigan, Central Michigan game last night on ESPNU, and that was like the junior varsity version of what could happen in Buffalo this weekend. And it was still crazy. I mean, the opening kickoff, the announcer said, and so brings it back to some yard line. Couldn't even tell what yard line it was, which made for good TV, but not exactly the easiest game to follow. All right, so back to Mexico City, where, again, Cardinals, I think technically are the host in this game against the 49ers, Schefter. And there are some major question marks for injuries. And let's start with Hollywood Brown, because recently Cliff Kingsbury was quoted as saying that the latest Hollywood Brown would be back would be after their bye, which isn't until, I think, December 4th, meaning December 12th would be the latest he'd be back. And yesterday he returned to practice. Do you think there's any chance we'll see him on Monday night?
Well, Cliff Kingsbury said there was a chance. Now we'll see whether he actually is out there. I'm a little skeptical. I expected this injury to last longer than it has, and he's made great progress, and everybody's pleased with where he's at. I think it's ambitious to think that he would be playing on Monday night, but Cliff Kingsbury was not ready to rule it out yesterday. So as long as he's not, we'll leave it open-ended right now and think there is the possibility. I think it would surprise me. But again, we'll see this weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be a surprise. That being said, we'll plan for that possibility. He was remarkable before he got hurt, of course, and all of a sudden that wide receiver room could be very deep. Same game, same team, Kyler Murray, who missed last week's game. He's not the only Cardinals quarterback who's banged up. What's going on in their QB room right now?
Well, what's happening is that Colt McCoy's got a little bit of a knee injury. They don't believe it's going to be an issue for Monday night. The hamstring for Kyler Murray is more significant right now, apparently, than the knee injury for Colt McCoy. And it doesn't seem like Kyler Murray is fully ready to go just yet. Now, we'll see whether he can make it back here in the next few days and be ready to go. But I think Colt McCoy's got some people who basically feel pretty good about him playing quarterback. And this is a guy that helped lead this team to a victory on the road last week against Los Angeles. He stepped in and played well in the past. And again, Kyler Murray is the guy they paid, and Kyler Murray is their quarterback, but I don't think that people need to rush Kyler back in their minds because they feel like they've got a capable replacement when Kyler's not 100% healthy. And so Colt McCoy's got support in that organization. And again, I think right now, my guess is it's tracking to be Colt McCoy on Monday night, and we'll see how the weekend shakes out.
After last week's win, I saw a piece in a local newspaper in Arizona about how Colt McCoy should be the guy, that there is a quarterback controversy. Some quickly dismissed that idea, but still, he's a serviceable backup. That much is for sure.
I'll just say he's got some support, Field. He's got some support.
Sure seems like it. And by the way, the offense played well enough to win last week against a good Rams defense. A bad Rams offense, obviously, but a good Rams defense. Rams side, what's going on with Matthew Stafford? Obviously, they very much missed him this past week.
Well, back at practice yesterday, practicing in full. So if you're practicing in full on Wednesday, that tells you that you're on track to play Sunday against the Saints, who will be starting Andy Dalton once again. And so I don't know that he's officially fully cleared concussion protocol, but it certainly sounds like when the Rams play Sunday, Matthew Stafford will be the quarterback again, and they need him, and you just wonder what that team is going to be doing without Cooper Kupp. You talk about target share. Was there anybody commanding more of a target share than Cooper Kupp? And how does that get allocated right now, right? Is it Ben Skoranek, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee? They don't even have much of a run game. Like, this is an offense right now that's got some major question marks and just lost its best player. And it'll be really interesting to see how that offense evolves without the great Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, a bit of an identity crisis right now for L.A.
Yeah.
Kupp may return, but he may not at some point later on this season. I guess that's dependent upon how good the team is or is not. If they're out of the playoff mix, maybe Cooper Kupp is back in 2023. What gets you out of here on this, Schefty, is you reported that Leonard Fournette is expected to be back when the team returns from its bye next week. What is your outlook, though, on Rachaad White, who you've been telling us about for months? Is this guy going to be like, he started last game? Can we expect more of that going forward, do you think?
Well, I'm just going to go back to all the things that I've heard throughout the course of the season, especially early in the season. People just keep saying to me, keep watching Rachaad White. At some point, he's going to get more and more and more work. And it seemed like it's really started to transition the last couple of weeks, maybe this past week in Germany especially. Right now, they're on the bye week. They come back. I believe they play the Cleveland Browns. I think this starts to turn more and more into the Rachaad White show. He's got the trust of the quarterback, Tom Brady. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. We saw how physical he could be with that stiff arm that he used in Germany. I just think that Rachaad White's turn, his time, has come. And I think it starts after the bye. Now, that doesn't mean that Leonard Fournette goes completely away, but you're going to see more and more and more work go to White. It's just, that's the way it's going to be going forward, I believe.
Okay, last one here, Schefty. Have any more of our ESPN colleagues been hired as an NFL head coach since I last checked Twitter?
No, but you know what is interesting? On the Indianapolis Colts staff, right? Yeah. They have two former ESPN analysts.
That's right.
On the coach, Jeff Saturday and John Fox.
Foxy, yeah.
So there you go. So like we are the minor league breeding ground for the Indianapolis Colts coaching staff.
I'm trying to think. So all right, so Daniel Dopp, future Lions offensive coordinator, has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, could be. Could be.
All right, Schefter, as always, we so appreciate you here. We'll talk to you again on Fantasy Football Now on Sunday. Can't wait for long shots and what I'm sure will be a very busy morning with all kinds of news.
Yeah, look forward to it, Field. Got to pack up for Mexico City and look forward to that trip as well.
Bienvenidos a Mexico City is what they'll be saying when you arrive to
Bienvenidos.
Estadio Azteca. All right, Schefter.
Estadio Azteca, yes.
Talk to you
I've been
soon.
going to that stadium since 1997, I believe. 1996. Seven? Seven was my first trip there, yeah.
So make sure you pack lots of water, an inhaler in case you, the 7,500, is it 7,500 feet of elevation? It's no
Correct.
joke.
Yeah. There's altitude issues. I got to be aware of that, too. I did not do well in Denver. Amazingly enough, my last trip there, I got sick. You just reminded me to bring my medication.
There you go. Schefter, try to look out for you. That's what we do here at ESPN. Thank you, as always. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Field.
All righty. Good stuff from Schefter, as
Taking care
always.
of people, Field. That's what you
Yeah,
do.
no, I've learned
Dr.
from you how
Yates.
to be a nurturing individual.
I got a quick update. 1997, last time that Adam got sick in Mexico. 1997, the last time that there was a score 19-18 in which the Bucks beat the Cardinals.
See?
Wow,
I
so
told you.
not a scorigami.
No.
So today we're going to do it again.
We're going to do
One
it again.
touchdown, 4 field goals. So you said the Packers are winning?
Yeah, Packers. Yeah.
Start Mason Crosby.
Start Crosby, yeah.
And then start Josh Lambo, who's
Josh
kicking
Lambo,
for the
yeah.
Titans tonight.
Uh-huh.
Is 18 scored via 6 field goals, or is it, what is that, like a touchdown, a couple
touchdown and two
safeties?
Probably
safeties.
some nonsense mixed in there. Yeah, I mean, this could be. It's gonna snow it all there.
It's Lambo,
Maybe.
so it probably
Yeah, maybe.
who knows.
Maybe
Yeah.
flurries, worst case.
By
yeah.
the way, if they do send like the Bills to Detroit for 2 straight weeks, like I'm just saying, Buffalo, the Mama Dopp Hotel is open, very reasonable rates.
Oh, wow.
We'll open up, the second spare room for you guys, for the team.
Yeah. She can make Josh
nice.
Allen feel at home.
Could mostly
She's a great cook, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They can
I
go
might
over
go.
their fantasy lineups together.
You should
I'm
go.
going.
We
You are?
should.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go hang out.
Must
Why
be
not?
nice.
I'm going
Why
to
not?
the Mama Dopp Hotel.
Must
Wanna hang out there?
Yeah.
I'm going. We're doing
Thanks
it.
for the invite, guys.
All right.
Sorry,
I'm gonna
Field.
miss the show this weekend.
Sorry.
I'm going.
All right. We're going to talk a couple of game previews after Adam. Thanks for that. All right. A reminder for buys this week. Miami, Seattle, Tampa Bay, and Jacksonville. First game we're looking at is Eagles and the Colts. Mike Clay lineup locks include Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, who we mentioned earlier, and wide receiver cornerback. We have Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman as well across both teams. I think there's a couple names still here that I would like to be able to mention. One of them, obviously, reminder, Field said it as well during wide receiver cornerback. No Dallas Goedert. He is out here. Devonta Smith. How close is he to a lineup lock? Is he included in the flex conversation for you?
Yeah, he's in the flex conversation for sure. He's been boom bust. We've been talking about this for weeks. We have that list, the Gabe Davises and the Mike Williams. He's in that conversation. So you're gonna have some down games, and the targets have been all over the place. But he's a good player. He scored a touchdown last week. So if I have him, I'm probably starting him. He's good enough. He's enough upside. It's good enough offense.
With you on that one. And Miles Sanders, we all have inside our top 20. Although it's been a little bit more down for Miles Sanders than it was to start the beginning of the season.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's just Washington. That's who's had his number. He has exactly 5.4 fantasy points in both of those games against Washington. He's averaging 15.9 fantasy points in his other games this season, every other game. So he's been pretty good. 5 touchdowns in his last 6 games. The targets are the problem, right? He has
Zero catches over his past 3
catches in 3 straight. It's a tough matchup. Colts have allowed 3.8 yards per carry. That is the 4th lowest in the NFL. They do allow a lot of volume though, a lot of running back carries against them. He'll be okay, right? He's gonna have a limited ceiling, a lot like Nick Chubb, where he doesn't have much passing game involvement, but he's been really good and efficient on the ground. They're ahead a lot. They're able to run the football. He's averaging over 5 yards per carry. It's just the passing down work that kind of limits the ceiling a little bit.
Yep. You want to see him get in the end zone, but still someone that
and
we're
he's been
starting
doing
this
that.
week.
He's been doing that.
What about some of the other Indy wide receivers outside of Michael Pittman? We watched Paris Campbell last week with Matt Ryan be awesome. Alec Pierce. Anybody else here in this Colts wide receiving core that you like?
Paris Campbell.
Yeah.
Right?
Paris has been awesome. His last 3 finishes when Matt Ryan has started, right? So we're not worried about Sam Ehlinger, right? He's not there anymore. It's Matt Ryan. Look at his last 3 fantasy finishes with Matt Ryan: 9th, 5th, and 11th. He's been really good. And his minimum, okay, this is his floor in those games: 9 targets, 57 yards, a touchdown, and 18 fantasy points. That's a worst case scenario in all 3 of those games. This is a tough matchup. Technically, the Eagles have been really good against receivers, but he's in the slot a lot, and Avonte Maddox is on IR. So we'll see Josiah Scott. Not too worried about the matchup for him because of that reason. Might not be as good as it's been, but can he be top 25, top 30? Absolutely, and that's where we have him ranked.
By the way, this is coming out of nowhere in the sense that he has been a non-factor for almost 3.5 years. Injuries, second-round pick. This guy was a star at Ohio State.
Oh, yeah, he's
Don't
awesome.
forget the pedigree here. I know that it seems very fluky, but this is not a guy who, this is not, I hate to be unkind, this is not Travis Fulgham, right? A 6th-round pick who truly came out of nowhere and eventually the bubble burst, right? Like, this is potentially real for Paris Campbell.
Yeah, and some guys just take a while. Some guys come in and are dominant right away, and we talked about Tyler Boyd earlier. Yeah. His second season in the NFL, he was a healthy scratch. He was a bust. Remember that? I mean, it was over. Like he just
the best example is Devontae Adams.
Yeah, that's
Go
another
back.
one.
There are all kinds of great articles about how the Packers should cut Devontae in his second season.
No way.
Glad they didn't.
Yeah,
For his sake.
Yeah,
For
same
their
thing with
sake,
Boyd.
too.
We thought Boyd was done. I mean, it's not as good of an example, but Nelson Aguilar as well. He was completely toast, and then he turned out to be a solid player and has had some good seasons. So sometimes it takes guys a while. Campbell is finally starting to get healthy, or he is healthy, and he's starting to produce as well. He's getting the ball. So what a story! It's been awesome.
I know it's not a question mark, but just quickly on Jonathan Taylor, like I think there are a lot of reasons to buy that last week was the start of the turnaround.
I agree.
He's healthy. Obviously, that's a huge part of it. The offensive line got called out. They were a little bit better. I mean, the 66-yard touchdown run, it was like the parting of the Red Seas there, right? He was literally untouched. The offensive line should be better than what it has been. The offense is far more functional with Matt Ryan under center, and they don't play a defense that currently ranks in the top 15 of rush yards allowed. Other than one game the rest of the season, the Eagles just signed Linval Joseph off the street because of their recent run defense issues. I wouldn't be surprised. I know what Indy's approach will be this weekend. It'll be to replicate what Washington did last weekend. Whether they can is to be seen, but they're going to try to run the ball 49 times like the Commanders did.
Yeah, and he's a feature back. Now, remember, before last week, that was the first game of his career that he played without Nyheim Hines.
Yeah,
He had never played a game without Nyheim Hines.
no
And
way.
we know Hines was playing 20 to 25 snaps a game and handling a lot of the passing down work. But without Hines, Taylor was the feature back. I mean, he was out there on all the passing plays too. So that's huge. I mean, this guy,
25 routes run,
this could be
30 dropbacks.
he might see 7 targets some games, right? Like it's big. He's in a spot for a really strong finish to the season.
Love that. Love that for Jonathan
You might have
Taylor.
bought him low a couple weeks ago too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
All right, let's talk Lions at Giants. This one's going to be tough. The Detroit Lions, like I said, on a winning streak, as everyone knows.
Of
And
course.
the New York Giants.
We've all been
Smell
celebrating.
that? Anybody else smell that?
What is it, Field?
Upset brewing.
Oh, he called it. He
Lineup
called it.
blocks include Amon-Ra St. Brown and Saquon Barkley. I noticeably see that we did not have the running backs on there, but it's in part because we sort of talked about them within Squirrel Stock. You know, we've got them both right around that running back 20 range, because which one are you trusting each week?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You might think, well, all right, so Swift has at least found the end zone a few times and his passing down work, and we know Jamal Williams just keeps scoring. You have to play him, right? But check this out. Since their week 6 bye, okay, we're in week 11. So since their week 6 bye, those two, Swift and Williams, have combined for one weekly finish better than 18th, right? So they're not lineup blocks, right? They're splitting this backfield. And like I said earlier, Justin Jackson played 16 snaps last week. It's tough. I mean, Williams is getting the goal line work, yes, and the bulk of the carries, but he's not getting any targets.
Nope.
And DeAndre Swift just isn't playing enough. He's getting a handful of carries and he's getting a few targets a game. At some point, we hope to get Swift back close to 100%, and he'll be more of the lead back and get 15 touches, and he becomes a top 10 play again. We're not there yet. So for now, these are both, we'll say, borderline RB2s.
So a big part of why DeAndre Swift is playing less is, of course, because of his health.
Right.
But our buddy Josh Norris, if you don't follow or know Josh Norris, who works for Underdog Fantasy, he's incredible at his job. He's a great person. Love Josh. Posted a clip recently of DeAndre Swift, who had a screen pass thrown his way, and there were like 3 offensive linemen, just a convoy ahead of him. If he had just run up the sideline, it might have been a massive gain. And DeAndre Swift instead wove back inside. It turned into like a 7-yard pickup. Right. And it was like, what's going on here? Right. And basically he noted how like that's a big play left on the board that should have easily, like, any running back should know to do that. And a couple of people commented that like this is one of the things that Deuce Staley is trying to get more out of from DeAndre Swift. He's such a talented guy, obviously, but part of why this might be a more equitable split in terms of snaps may not just be health related, but also like they're challenging DeAndre Swift to do more. And in a couple of opportunities, maybe he hasn't done more. And you can say whatever you want about the physical gifts of DeAndre Swift versus Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams strikes me as the kind of guy that he's going to give you exactly what he has every single play. And there are coaches that will tell you, I'd rather take a B 100 times out of 100 than an A 50 times and a C 50 times. Like, that's just how coaches are wired. So I'm just adding that to the conversation, that this may be mostly driven by the injury, but DeAndre Swift's leaving some meat on the bone that certainly, if he turned those plays around, could lead to much bigger fantasy days.
Totally agree with that. Let's talk about the Giants really quickly. Daniel Jones against this Lions defense. Is he a streamer for you guys like he is for me?
Yeah.
Wow.
say-
You didn't have to laugh like that when you said it,
Because
Mike.
it's the same conversation every week. There's like 15 of these guys, and you just basically shuffle them around based on the schedule, right? And this week, Daniel Jones, he only has 2 top 12s, right? He has not had much of a ceiling this season, 22nd in pass attempts, but he's top 5 at quarterback in carries, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns. So 20 or more rushing yards in 8 of his 9 games this season, right? So he's giving you a little bit of a floor, and the matchup, of course, is great. Lions, most fantasy points and the highest yards per attempt to quarterback. So if we get a little passing out of Jones against your Lions, and he does what he normally does with his legs, maybe he pulls off another top 12. That's where I have him ranked.
And Darius Slayton is a name to monitor. If you're looking for a flex option because of all the players that are out this week, I do think Darius Slayton has some value there.
All right,
it's been good.
Let's talk Browns at Bills.
How do we want to do this? Do we do this like, I think we should evaluate this if it's not being played in an absolute squall
In a
month.
snowstorm?
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think we should just do it like either they're playing it in Buffalo and the field is either clear or relatively clear, or they're playing it in Detroit.
I saw a tweet earlier today, and I wish that I remembered who it was. I apologize. But just knowing that they're going to potentially get 3 to 6 feet, they were saying start everyone under like 5'8". So all the Devin Singletaries, all the Isaiah, like they're just going to get lost out there in the field.
Was it my buddy Joe
Joe's up to
Goodberry?
here.
Yes, that's who it was. Joe Goodberry. There you
Who
go.
actually
right,
lives
right,
in
right.
Buffalo, is a huge Bengals enthusiast. It's a great,
I think
great
Josh Norris
coverage.
retweeted it, which is why I saw that. Which
Yeah,
was
same as @Goodberry on Twitter. Lifelong Bengals fan, lives in Buffalo.
Very
though.
funny.
Very fun. And
Very
Joe
funny.
does an amazing job covering the Bengals if you don't already follow him and you're interested in Cincinnati.
So we'll assume this is just a normal football game. We can add. We'll talk more about the weather later on, but like we'll talk about this as though it's just a normal football game for us right now. Lineup locks include Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Josh Allen, and Stephon Diggs, which makes sense.
Yeah, we're probably starting them anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much regardless.
Like, yeah, there's 2 feet down there. Still go Diggs. Like,
all
you
those
still can't
guys, you're still starting basically. David Njoku still
not
on
practicing.
the injury report, which
Could be
is
another week. So remember, the initial timeline was 2 to 5 weeks. I think this is week 3, so it wouldn't surprise me if this one either goes right up to game time or he is out. If he plays, though, he has been rock solid for Cleveland. If not, we haven't seen a ton of production from Harrison Bryant. He had 3 catches for 15 yards and a touchdown this past week, but 3 catches, 15 yards, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of minimal games there for Harrison Bryant, who you would think would have a more productive role.
Yeah,
but
and the
not
week
quite
before he
case.
had 0 target, or I think it was 0 catches.
it was 0
the week
catches,
before,
yeah.
right? So not a guy you feel great about. for
Basically,
sure.
the Njoku replacement is Donovan Peoples-Jones.
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So we'll
Who,
keep an eye
who
on this.
was good prior to Njoku's injury, but it's just been even more of DPJ.
Yeah, keep in mind, Njoku did suggest last week that he was going to play in week 10 and then didn't practice and didn't play. So we just have to keep an eye on this.
Dude,
every
he
day.
like suggested literally the week that he got hurt. He was like, I might play this week.
Yeah.
So
That's-
not that, believe it or not, he is not a doctor.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah,
No,
he
didn't
just
know that.
he is an
Really?
awesome football player. And by the way, he's compensated extremely well and deservedly so for
Yeah.
being an awesome football player.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. He's having a heck of a year. Sometimes tight ends, sometimes it just takes a while, especially the guys that come in young.
Yeah,
Takes
totally.
a few years, maybe even 5 years to break out. So,
Yeah, like I think
feel
like by 2028, Kyle Pitts might reach
I know,
1,000
right?
receiving yards
That
again.
was where I was going. That's someday. Someday it will happen for Kyle Pitts.
All right, 2 other people. We already mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones, someone to be able to consider here in this game. And we like him. I mentioned him in Squirrel Stock.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt, the other guy to really consider here. And that's tough. I don't feel super comfortable. I don't think anyone feels comfortable starting Kareem Hunt here. If you're doing it, it's because you have to, not because you want to.
How many times has he finished inside the top 20?
I don't even want you to ask me that question because the answer is none.
Week 1.
Dang
Week
it.
one. Week 1. That's the last time. So he's at best a flex option. The volume's been down lately.
I think the only way that I would be interested in starting Kareem Hunt is if the game is played and the conditions are crappy enough that they can still play it, but it's going to be a run-heavy game, like that Indy game that Schefter was referencing, that Indy Buffalo game where like Frank Gore had like 20 carries in that wild snow. That would be the conditions that I would want if I'm starting Kareem Hunt. Otherwise, I will be passing.
Yep. With you.
Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Devin Singletary. We have ranked just inside the top 20 after a 2-touchdown performance last week. Mike Clay, what do you think about Devin Singletary?
Yeah, I
this
like him
week?
a lot because Naheem Hines' role has not increased yet. At some point, you will see him. Maybe it's a game where it's really competitive or they're trailing. We've talked about this field at length about how they might choose to utilize him. But for now, it's been the Singletary show. Still, last week, 71% of the snaps, only 18% for James Cook and 7% for Hines. Singletary has finished as a top 25 fantasy running back in 5 of his last 7 games, right? So he's been solid. Also, a great matchup. The Browns against running backs, second most fantasy points, third most yards, and 15 touchdowns to that position. That is most in the NFL. So a lot of reasons to like Singletary.
Reminds me of Miles Sanders in terms of overall value, does Devin Singletary.
Interesting.
I think that's fair. I think that Singletary may be more in jeopardy of disappearing if they're just like, all right, it's time for Cook and Hines or something. Like there's at least a chance of that where it wasn't earlier this year. But I don't think Sanders is going anywhere, but they do utilize multiple backs.
Yeah, it was my thought process there being like good enough and used enough that he'll consistently find his way into the top 20 of running backs. But top 10 weeks are not something I expect very frequently from either one of them.
So Sanders, Singletary, and Najee Harris. Unfortunately, like who wouldn't have thought Harris would be there, but same thing, right? He's
Like,
just,
what's the ceiling with those guys, right? Like, really good floor, but
exactly. They don't have top 10 weeks; they have top 20 weeks. You know?
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
All right, let's talk about Gabe Davis as well, someone that we also have
So
inside
the
our top
opposite
20.
of what we just said about the
Exactly.
running back.
The
exact
Davis who
opposite.
has his pie charts a little
He's
bit
either
different.
80th or 5th.
Here's the thing about Gabe Davis, and we've said this all year long. If you're starting Gabe Davis, you have Gabe Davis, you're riding that roller coaster. You're starting Gabe Davis. I want to know, with a quick shift, if this is a weather game and you have guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Gabe Davis, who I would normally otherwise definitely start, how do you look at those deep targets when you're talking about feet of snow like that? Because it becomes this Nick Chubb, Devin Singletary, Kareem Hunt running game, right?
Yeah, I don't think I would play them if it's crazy weather.
No, we'll be downgrading the passing game substantially. There's wind in the forecast too. So that's another thing. The field might be clear and it might be 30-mile-an-hour winds. And then that's even worse probably than having some snow on the ground. So again, we're just gonna have to take this down to game time. But right now, I would have backup plans for guys like Davis and Peoples-Jones.
We get one weird Buffalo weather game every year. Remember last year we had a Monday Night Football
Patriots
game
game.
where they threw it,
Yeah.
Patriots threw it like 3 times total. Like one weird Buffalo weather game per year. Perhaps this Sunday is our weird Buffalo weather game. I know that we say it a lot, but we can't stress this enough. Fantasy football now, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN2, because by then we'll have much more information and a much better feel for the forecast. Maybe even a reporter on site in Buffalo if Kimberly Martin
It's
makes
gonna be
it there,
Kimberly
because
Martin.
no, she's been assigned to the game. We just don't know if she'll be there depending on whether the weather holds up or not.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sure she would not mind doing that from like her house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked to
Nah,
Josh Allen on Zoom this week. Well, she's already in Cleveland this week as she's covering the game in Cleveland during the week because
Gotcha.
Deshaun Watson's return to practice.
Oh,
Obviously,
right,
a lot of
right.
intrigue there.
Sure.
Sunday, we'll see where in the world is Kimberly A. Martin.
All right, that's going to do it for the Thursday show. Check out, if you're in the podcast feed, the CSS DFS podcast
so
coming
good.
up next. Got another great show for you. Other than that, we will be back tomorrow. Field, Mike, and Stefania will be back.
Happy birthday, Daniel.
Love
Happy
you
birthday,
guys.
buddy.
Thank you so
At
much.
Daniel
too.
Dopp, tweet him. Something to break on Instagram. Post a nice message about him. Please.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We love you. Please love yourself. Be kind to yourself. Love each other. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
All right, let's
Bye.
go party. Where are we going?
Miller Lights on
Got
me.
a couple of Miller Lights.
Let's go. Little Caesars.
There are
We're gonna
lights
go
on
Little
me.
Caesars.
Pizza.
We're gonna Little Caesars. Some beer.
Pizza.
We need to go hit that
bring her
pizza
in.
portal
You like to
pickup.
do that?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Just take
Little
her beer.
bowling.
BYOB.
Bowling, pizza
Bowl?
portal pickup.
Yeah. We need practice.